How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to VoroMotors. I'm AJ Hart, here today with another guide to improve your ride. Now, if you've been paying attention to our Facebook page, or if you've noticed it on our Instagram, we here at VoroMotors have announced a new throttle for our EMOVE Cruiser, which is our new twist throttle. Fancy, isn't it? So for today's video, as a celebration, I'm going to show you all how to install the twist throttle onto the Cruiser, and I'm going to go ahead and take it for a ride, show it off, and tell you guys my honest thoughts about it. It's a really easy process to get this on. It's a plug-and-play system just like our thumb throttle or our trigger throttle. So all you're really going to need is a pair of Allen wrenches and a way to get the handlebars off. I'm going to show you a cool trick about that here in a second. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, if you've seen our other videos, you may have seen the trick that you can do with an air compressor and this to just go ahead and rip the handlebars right off. But unfortunately in my backyard I don't have an air compressor, I just have a bike pump. But I did buy a bike pump recently that had this little red knob to it. So if you put that into the pump and then jam it into that hole, it should work pretty decently. Just pump. And we can do that on both sides. So let's go ahead and jump over there and do that. We're just gonna go ahead and jam that into the hole and pump and pull. Now we do need to remove those on both sides because the twist throttle comes with two new handlebars. That way you can have a nice matching look. Now before we get too far into this job, we're gonna go ahead and go to the old throttle, see where it's plugged in, and just unplug that. Now let's go ahead and get this old system all off. Now currently I have the thumb throttle on, so in order to get this off, I'm gonna need to take off the brake unit, the throttle, and then the display. So one by one we'll go ahead and take those off. Now that the old throttle's been unplugged, we're gonna go ahead and remove it. So we're gonna take an Allen wrench and loosen up these two screws here. Now before we're done removing this completely, I want to let you know that on the back of this unit you're going to see two bolts on the opposite side of these screws. You want to make sure that you don't lose those bolts because you're going to need them to put the new voltmeter on with the new throttle. And here's those two screws I was mentioning. Again, we want to make sure that we don't lose these. So maybe put them in a cup or something to keep them safe. You're going to want them to put on the new voltmeter that is attached to the new throttle. Now that the voltmeter's released, let's go ahead and get underneath and make sure that we can get this throttle out. But you'll notice that this throttle is still being held in place by the brake. The bolt for the brake is right here, but first I need to loosen up this throttle because the throttle's in the way of the brake's bolt. Alright, nice and loose. Now I can get to this brake. So, now that everything's ready, let's go ahead and just take these both off. Alright, the old throttle's removed. Now we're ready to put on the new one. Now we're going to go ahead and take the throttle and slide it down onto the bar. Now keep in mind that you're going to see the cable. Try to keep that tilted a little bit up and back as much as you can because once it's on, it's a little bit hard to adjust, to actually twist it without it activating. But we want to make sure that there's a good amount of slack on the cable on the back here. So line it up a little bit, kind of up, so that when it sits on the throttle, it feels nice and comfortable. I'll go ahead and show you guys another angle here in a second. But you're just gonna slide that down as much as you can so it still feels right. Try to keep this cable a little bit up in the back because when it slides in, you wanna make sure that it can comfortably be on the brace back there. So you wanna give it a good amount of room up top. So line it up first and then go ahead and slide it down. And you're gonna wanna kind of grab the silver end here and wiggle it down a little bit further to make sure that it goes on nice and far. Once it's seated where you think it's comfortable, we're gonna go ahead and take an Allen wrench and tighten this screw on the inside here. And we're just gonna go ahead and tighten that down. And that's gonna be how this locks onto the handlebars. Remember those two nuts I told you about before? We're gonna go ahead and seat those on the back of the brace. There should be two hexagonal little divots that you can just slide them into. Once they're both back there, we're gonna go ahead and take this new LCD and go ahead and start screwing these in through the top. Alright, that feels nice and secure to me. Now, we're going to go ahead and take these cables and plug it in. Hey, this is AJ from the future. Really quick, I should have mentioned that when you plug this in, you want to be mindful of two little divots. On the female side, there's going to be a divot right here on the bottom, and on the male side, there's a divot up on the top that would go into that divot. Make sure that when you plug it in, those are lined up correctly so that you don't break anything. If you're having a hard time with the divots, you'll notice these two little arrows that you can use to line it up to. Let's get back to the video. Put the key in the ignition and power it on to make sure it works. And the LCD comes on, so we're good to go. Now let's go ahead and put on the other handlebar. And just like the last one, we're just gonna slide it on and then tighten it down. Good to go. Now let's go ahead and make sure that we tighten down the LCD and the brake where we want them to be at. And there we have it. I'm gonna wait until my neighbor's done with whatever they're doing. There's a leaf blower, a police siren, a plane, and a helicopter all going off at the same time in my backyard. This is what filming these feels like. And there it is, done and done. Like I said, it's really easy to install this because it's plug and play. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and take this out for a ride and give you all my thoughts on the new Throttle. But first, I need to go charge some GoPros. Okay, now that my GoPros are charged up, let's go ahead and take this for a ride. I tried out a couple different camera angles, but this was the first time I ever tried to rig a GoPro to one of these scooters, so I ran into a couple snags, so some of the camera angles aren't great. I hope you'll bear with me. Let's talk about what I like about this Throttle. It's the most comfortable thing I've ever had on the cruiser. Something about just twisting back the throttle and being able to go feels really natural to me. Maybe that's because I rode motorcycles as a kid growing up. It was also nice because the whole time I was riding, I had a solid grip of the handlebars. It wasn't like the thumb throttle where I felt like I was constantly having to push underneath, and it wasn't like the finger throttle where I felt like my hand was always a little bit off of the handlebars. I felt in control the entire time I was riding this. And this was nice not only just for general turning and riding, but also for the bumpy roads. They felt way more safe. It also felt a lot more comfortable to just hold at the top speed. This became a little bit of an issue though, because if I tried to let go of the handlebars, I didn't feel the scooter slow down because the cruise control had kicked in. For that reason, I went ahead and turned the cruise control off pretty early into my ride because that was really bugging me. It is worth mentioning that the LCD display isn't the brightest, and that can also be a pretty big issue. I angled the LCD up a little bit more towards me, but that still didn't fix all of the issues. In direct sunlight, it can be pretty tough to see. You'll notice here that I turned off into a bumpy road, and like I mentioned before, because I was able to have a full grip of my handlebars, going onto this bumpy road felt totally fine. In fact, it was kind of fun being able to just cruise right through all of these bumps and really take advantage of the suspension that our cruiser has. With that being said, I can honestly say that I think that this twist throttle is the nicest throttle we've got for the cruiser so far. I do kind of wish that my cruiser had a seat, because I'm sure that the twist throttle and a seat would feel like such a smooth and nice ride. If you want to do that for your own cruiser, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link to Electron Surfer. They did a guide on how to install the seat yourself. It's a pretty nice little video. And with those thoughts, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that this video helps you decide on what throttle you want to use, and helps you put the throttle on if that's what you need help with. If you have any questions about this throttle, or about the cruiser itself, go ahead and drop those into the comments down below and I can definitely answer them. If you have any ideas for other videos you'd like to see us do, go ahead and drop those into the comments down below too. Thank you all so much for watching. We hope that this video helps, and I hope you enjoy your ride.